The polished marble floors of Caldwell and Burke gleamed under the morning sun like sheets of ice, echoing with the deliberate steps of confident heels and crisp leather shoes. The reception area didn't feel like a workspace, it resembled a modern art gallery. A curved walnut desk framed with brass trim sat beneath a towering vase of white orchids that hadn't wilted in weeks. It smelled like money in here. Money, legacy, and the type of power that didn't need to raise its voice. Naomi Varela stepped inside slowly, clutching a faded canvas tote bag close to her side like it might shield her. Her blazer was secondhand, one size too large. The cuffs were slightly frayed, and her sneakers scrubbed white but battered told quiet stories of early shifts, missed buses, and worn sidewalks. Her hands trembled just a little, not from nerves, but from holding her resume so tightly the edges had curled. Across the room, other candidates waited. Perfectly postured, glowing with practice charm, they flipped through portfolios on tablets, whispering jokes to one another. One woman, a sleek blonde in an immaculate pantsuit, glanced at Naomi and let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. "Are you lost?" she asked, her tone dipped in sugar and superiority. Naomi didn't reply. She held her gaze for half a second, then quietly took the seat farthest from everyone. She looked like a shadow at the edge of a spotlight. She didn't belong here, not by the standards of this place. Her best friend Talia had urged her to apply. "They're looking for someone who sees things differently," she said. "Someone who doesn't think like everyone else." Naomi had rolled her eyes. She had no degree, no high-powered references, just a sharp mind, a broken laptop, and notebooks filled with hand-drawn graphs and carefully scribbled idea solutions to problems no one had asked her to solve. Names were called one by one. Polished shoes clicked toward the glass interview chamber like it was some kind of judgment hall. Naomi's stomach tightened with every departure. When they finally called her name, it felt like she was stepping into an arena where the Lions wore designer watches. The interview room was colder than the lobby, as if ambition drained the heat from the walls. 3 people sat behind a long black desk. In the center was Everett Burke, the CEO. A man with silver hair, sharp eyes, and a reputation for slicing through candidates like they were nothing but warm-up rounds. To his left, a woman in a precise gray suit tapped a stylus against her tablet. To the right, a younger man with thick-rimmed glasses looked perpetually amused by everything but himself. Burke glanced at her resume like it had arrived on accident. "You're Naomi Varela?" "Yes, sir." He frowned slightly. "Waitress?" "Laundromat attendant." "You tutor math to neighborhood kids?" "Yes." "No degree?" "No certifications." "And this resume typed on a typewriter?" "My laptop crashed." "I typed it at the community center," she said softly. Burke sighed, raising a hand like he didn't want to hear more. The woman in gray leaned forward. "This role is about innovation, big ideas, analytical thinking. What makes you think you're qualified to sit at this table?" Naomi could have told them everything. How she taught herself calculus from a torn-up textbook from a thrift shop. How she created a budgeting system on paper that helped 5 single moms stretch their paychecks. How she saw math in patterns, in movement, in people. But all she said was, "I solve problems." A beat, then a stifled laugh from the man in glasses. Not cruel, just condescending. "Thank you for coming in," Burke said, standing. It was done. Naomi stood, face burning. She nodded politely and turned toward the door, preparing to fade into the background like always. Then the intercom crackled above them. "Mr. Burke." The Valence pitch numbers just came in. They backed out. A stunned pause. The woman in gray went rigid. The younger man cursed under his breath. Burke's entire posture changed, his jaw grinding tight. "Everyone out," he barked. Naomi froze. Halfway out. Already forgotten. But something inside her said no. She turned back. "I can fix it." Every head turned. Burke stared at her like he hadn't heard right. "What did you say?" "I saw your Valence proposal on the screen in the lobby," she said, voice steadier now. "The logistics model was solid, but you missed the behavior pattern. They pulled out because your projections ignored secondary user retention past Q3. Silence. If you'd run a cluster analysis on stress-induced user behavior, you would have seen the fall-off curve. I can show you." For the first time, Burke really looked at her. No one said why they let her stay. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was something else. They brought her to a smaller conference room. Gave her a marker. Pointed to the glass board like a challenge. The executives stood with arms folded, expecting her to flounder. Naomi's knees wobbled. Her hand trembled. She started slow sketching out user flows, statistical clusters, stress response models. Her voice quivered, barely audible. Then her marker slipped. It shrieked against the glass. She fumbled. Dropped it. The man in glasses chuckled. "There it is," muttered the woman in gray. Naomi's face flushed. She bent down to pick it up, but her fingers shook. She couldn't grip it. Her lungs tightened. But then, she stopped. She stood up, walked back to the board, and erased the entire thing. The room gasped. "What is she doing?" Naomi turned, her voice calm now, clear and even. "You're not failing because your math is off. You're failing because you're selling solutions without understanding people. Your users aren't metrics theory exhausted, overstimulated, drowning in logins and prompts and notifications." She turned back to the board and began again. This time she drew flowchart simple, intuitive user experiences. Seamless paths instead of mazes. She spoke of trust, frustration thresholds, invisible friction. Of design thinking shaped by compassion, not complexity. The room went completely still. Burke leaned forward. "You said you can reverse the drop?" "Yes," Naomi said. "By listening." The following Monday, her phone rang. They didn't offer her the position. They offered her a division. Naomi became the director of human-centered strategy, tasked with building an entire team from scratch. She walked into Caldwell and Burke not as a hopeful candidate, but as the woman whose insights saved a multi-million-dollar partnership with a single whiteboard and a truth no one else had seen. At her first company-wide presentation, she stood before rows of high-ranking executives, marketing heads, and the very people who had once dismissed her. Same scuffed sneakers. Same blazer. But this time, she held the presentation clicker like it was a weapon. And her voice? It filled the auditorium like a symphony. Midway through her talk, she pulled up a retention graph. The spike was impossible until it wasn't. A collective inhale swept the room. Then her final slide appeared, a white screen with 3 simple words. We heard them. The applause was deafening. People stood. Even Burke. Naomi didn't hide her tears. She let them fall. She had spent years unseen, unheard, unchosen. But now? Now they were listening. Never underestimate the quiet one in the corner. Never dismiss the hands that tremble but still reach. Naomi's story is a reminder that resilience doesn't always arrive dressed for the part. Sometimes it wears worn sneakers and speaks softly until the moment it speaks louder than anyone else in the room. Because when the world tries to ignore you, but you believe in yourself anyway, that's when everything changes. And sometimes the person they all underestimate ends up being the one they can't stop applauding.